Welcome to Energize and Revitalize with Dr. Amy. I'm Dr. Amy Cooper Smith, a doctorate prepared nurse practitioner, and this show is about empowering you to live a radiant, healthy, and balanced life. I'm very excited to introduce today's guest, Tanya Leake, board certified health and wellness coach, and also a faculty member at the Healthy Gamer Institute. So, welcome and thank you so much for being here today.
It is my pleasure. I'm so excited to be with you.
Yeah. So, what led you to become a health and wellness coach?
Ooh, that's a story.
Okay. Well, this is the
So
perfect place to tell your story.
exactly. I started out in as an engineer coming out of school
Oh,
and became an IT consultant. And so was following my software engineering, business consulting. I don't know if I'd call it a passion, but it was very intriguing to me. And I actually found that my health was suffering as a result of indulgent meals and flights and no time to really exercise. Sleep was not consistent. A lot of habits that I would like to have had in place weren't there. And at the same time, I had a friend who was seeing she was more of a holistic medicine woman, if you will. And I saw her. I hadn't seen her for a while, and she looked amazing. She was radiant. She was just glowing literally from the inside out. And so I had to ask her what she was doing. And she mentioned this woman to me. I started to see her, and we started to really work on a lot of lifestyle changes. And I saw such a difference. And I said, I want to do something like this. I want to have more impact on people and their lives and how they're living them and just their level of joy and happiness. And when I started doing it, because the person that I had seen was not a coach per se, I didn't really know that coaching was out there as a profession. I knew of coaches, right? Football coaches, soccer
right.
coaches, and as I started doing the work, I started becoming aware of coaching, and it fit right into what I wanted to do. And so it just became sort of a natural transition for me, a big transition from corporate to
Yeah,
health and
it's a
wellness.
little different.
Very different.
Yeah, I love that. We've had other guests too that were just on a different path and very similar, just they weren't happy or their health was failing. And then they made that shift and now they help others, which is awesome.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, revitalize, right? Energy. I mean, this is
Mm-hmm.
what gives me energy, and I
Yeah.
feel that vitality. Not only because I'm taking better care of myself, but yes, because of the purpose that I feel in working with others and really, coaching in the sense of the certification that comes with the national board. It's really about helping others find their way. So it's
Yeah.
not about, hey, I'm going to give you the answer, right? It's a facilitation. It's a partnership. It is a guiding, just kind of providing all the right provocative questions for someone to find their version of being energized and being vitalized.
Yeah, I think most of us need some sort of coaching on our journey in life, and finding the right person for what we need at that time is just very important.
Yeah, yeah. I wish that more people knew, because coach is such a common word, which is why I
Right.
didn't know about it originally. I wish that more people knew what coaching can do for you, because to your point, I mean, I have a coach, right? it's not
Yeah.
it's not just about the fact that I know. It's about the fact that someone is able to reflect those things back to me. Someone's able to ask me some questions to really critically think about how something that I want to have happen, particularly a behavior change, can actually happen, and use my own knowledge of my life,
Yeah.
to make that happen in the most sustainable way possible. So that's what I love about doing this.
Yeah. So on the show, we talk a lot about burnout. And when you describe burnout, you describe it as a more gradual process, not a sudden event. So what's going on that's leading to burnout?
Well, so there's, in coaching, we talk a lot about being aligned with your values.
Yep.
Really kind of connecting with what's important to you intrinsically, right? Not kind of what social media and some of the other things are saying should be, right? The big should be important. And when you talk about burnout, it comes from this concept of various things that you probably, there is resistance, there's tension because it is not aligned in some way with your sort of your identity, in all honesty. And it's something that can be very subtle, right? And we don't realize how much time we spend in those places, in those spaces with those people potentially, and those gradually wear away at us. And you're familiar with this sort of low grade inflammation, right? It sort of creeps up, and then it results in burnout. So I do believe that there's ways that we can more intentionally shift the time that we're spending so that we can, kind of hopefully reduce that low grade. You're never, and I hate to say never, I don't like to say never. You're never going to get rid of stress, right? The only
Sure.
consistent in life is change. The key thing is how you recover from it consistently, and how you have those places, spaces, and people that really create deposits for you as opposed to withdrawals. So yeah, you don't become broke. I guess that would be a good metaphor, right? You don't become broke all of a sudden. Stuff gets
Yeah.
spent usually over time, and,
Yeah,
and
I
you're
like how
spending.
you say surround yourself with people to make deposits
Yeah,
because I think everyone can relate to having, there are people in our lives maybe that can be a little draining or maybe kind of contribute to some of these feelings. So, how do we kind of find more people to make deposits?
yeah. I appreciate that question because I think that's something that I've very intentionally thought about, and I've created kind of this acronym that I use, which is called the SERVE model, in terms of how is this person, and it could be, you could apply it to an activity, a place, an environment that you might be in, but how is it serving you? And to your point, serving you means how much is it giving you deposits as opposed to sort of withdrawing and draining you. And so there's sort of the 5 letters represent different questions that you can ask yourself. And remember, nothing is 100%. As I said, hate to say never, hate to say always. But it allows you to sort of ask the questions and figure out maybe where there's some shifts that you can make. So it's not okay, if the answer to this is no, then you just throw it out, throw the person out, throw the
Yeah.
activity out. So the first thing is the S is safe and supported. So specifically for people, if we're talking about people, who do you feel safe and supported to be your authentic self? So we're talking about alignment, like, right? I'm
Hmm.
not putting a mask on. I'm not sort of trying to be someone that I'm not, or kind of trying to please them in ways that, feel like it's more for them than it is for me. So really this concept of being safe and supported to be yourself. And that's number one, also the first letter.
Yep.
So often we don't think about, how we feel authentically with people. So the E is excited and eager to be with that person. So if you're dreading the time that you're going to spend with someone, it's a pretty sure bet that that's going to be a draining place for
Right.
you. Now, I often analogize this with the gym for my clients
Hmm.
because a lot of people dread going to the
Yes.
gym. But when they get there, right, they're like, oh, it's great. So again, this is to say that not everything has to be a yes to these questions, but keep it in mind, right? There's a total picture. So if you feel safe and supported, but maybe, there's always this kind of hump you have to get over to get to the person. Okay. Then you ask yourself the next question, which is one of my favorite 2 words in the English language when I sort of thought about these is, are you wrapped and riveted when you're with them?
Okay.
So this concept of flow, right? The time is flying by. Once you do get there, it's like you're having a ball. You're just enjoying yourself. You don't realize hours go by.
Yeah.
And so that is showing you that there's something there that is really, again, aligned with who you are and who you want to be. And then the V is, um, do you feel valued with that person? So do you feel like they appreciate you? Do you feel like you're bringing something to the table with them? And that's really, how do you feel with what it is that you're bringing to ultimately any relationship, right, that you might have. And I say relationship meaning any interaction that you have with anyone. And the last E is for enhanced. So this is, what value do I get? So am I providing value is the B. The E is, do I get value? How am I enhanced by the time that I spend with that person? And again, the question is, do I feel enhanced? And it could be as simple as enjoyment, right? So
Mm-hmm.
chances are, if you were wrapped and riveted, that you got some sort of enjoyment enhancement out of it. So those can go together, but when you consider it, maybe there are some other things there. So that's how I recommend to my clients, certainly, that they start evaluating, especially the people that they spend the most time with. Because again, this is about time. You're gonna have people that you have to be with, whether it's for work or just because maybe your partner's family, your in-laws, right?
Sometimes our own family.
And sometimes, thank you, yes. So you're not going to get away from everyone, but it's people that you spend the most time with, and that you make the decision to spend the most time with. How are those people creating deposits in those ways? And so that's how I define it.
Yeah, as you were talking, I was like, well, what if it's your boss? And what if you don't have a choice? But really, if we're evaluating our career path, that if we those questions do apply. If there's somebody that's not valuing you or not, making you feel worthy, then
Yes.
maybe we do need to make different decisions in that realm.
Yeah, and it is one of those things where I also understand that it's not the easiest thing. You can't just say, "Oh, okay, that's not
Right.
working, so I'm just going to leave this job." What that requires then is, again, intentional movement towards that recovery, spending more time outside of your workday with people that do meet those needs that you have ultimately. So there's balance in everything. So you can make that decision, to your point. I mean, again, asking those questions gives you you can say the data points. That might be the engineer in me. The data points to say, maybe I should consider a job change. But if, again, your circumstance says, I this is not possible for me at this time, where else can I find those moments that I can get that recovery from what ultimately is contributing to, you know, withdrawal. So how can I maximize my deposits somewhere else?
Yeah.
Right.
So
So it's not an all or nothing situation.
so how do people? You mentioned having good people in your life, but what are some other things we can do to recover and be aligned?
Well, I always, as someone who's done some additional training around sleep coaching,
Mm,
I always recommend that people look at their sleep. And one of the most surprising pieces of research that I think has come up most recently in the last couple of years is this stuff around, kind of less about the amount, and clearly the amount counts. Like if you're getting 2 hours a night, something needs to
right.
shift, but less about, okay, 6 versus 7 hours, and more about the window, right? This concept of, which I loved this when I read this in the first research study I read about it, social jet lag. Are you familiar with this concept?
No.
Okay. So social jet lag is the concept of your work week versus your weekend,
Oh, right.
right? Your time on versus your time off. How much does your sleep window shift?
Hmm.
And if it's more than I would say 2 hours. I mean, obviously there's various research, there's a bell curve, et cetera. If there's more than 2 hours of a shift, if you go to sleep at 9 p.m., and you wake up at, let's say, 5 a.m. during the week, during your work week, whatever that looks like, and then on your days off, you party hardy till 3 a.m. and you wake up, you will develop social jet lag. And so what they've seen is that, on the other side of that, I mean, that can cause significant, health challenges. But on the other side of that, there is the fact that if you can maintain a pretty consistent window, you'll see benefits. Even if you can't get, squeeze out that total, 7 to 8 hours, the ideal time, can you make sure that your window is consistent? Because of that real need for your circadian rhythm and the recovery. So again, we talked about these little things that contribute to burnout. That is one of them, that you're getting out of sync ultimately.
Mm-hmm.
And that's creating, that sort of low grade stress in the body.
Yeah, we have a joke in my friend group if we're out after 9 that we're like, oh, it's time. We gotta go. So one of the joys of getting older. When we were young, we'd stay out all night, but now it's not
I
so much
mean,
fun.
the all-nighters were not a problem, but yeah, I mean, and when I talk about aging, it is one of those things where I heard this podcast. This is the analogy I give. I heard this podcast that was talking about, there was a GYN that was talking about how she analogized the human body to a car. And she actually used the 1,000 miles per year as kind of, you can think about, you put 1,000. I use 2 because by the time that you're 50, you should think about that you have a 100,000-mile car, which a lot of people realize. That's either you're going to turn it in or you're going to get really intentional about making sure that you get the services that are needed, that you check those tires, right? That you make sure the oil is changed. So with to your point, as we get older, right, that time that you go to sleep, whether or not we have a consistent window, becomes more important, that you become intentional about it. Because again, we have this subtle inflammaging that is happening.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to have you hold that thought. We're going to pause for a break from our sponsor. You're
Okay.
listening to Energize and Revitalize with Dr. Amy. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Okay. Welcome back to Energize and Revitalize with Dr. Amy. I'm Dr. Amy Cooper Smith, and my guest today is Tanya Leake. Before the break, we were talking about finding our purpose, staying in alignment, and then aging, and how it's so much more important to be intentional with our self care as we get older. So, during the break, we were talking a little bit about menopause, which has affected most of my population here. So, tell me a little bit about the work you do with menopausal ladies.
Yeah, that's thank you for making that transition, right? Because we think about aging, and I think there is a particular need that we have as women to focus on menopause and our understanding of it. The When I started health coaching and getting into it, and I was working with a physician actually as a co-directors for the research program for a nonprofit that was dedicated to awareness and advocacy for uterine fibroids. So she and I are about the same age, and we were both in our perimenopausal stage. And one of the things we were focused on with the research was this concept of the research practice gap. Right. So research says that the gap between when we generally know something, right? We have a good body of evidence around it, and its widespread practice clinically is about 16 years.
Oh, wow.
That's a long time between having something that we think could actually be of use to someone who may be in need of it and I may be suffering.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things our goal was to narrow that research practice gap, particularly for women, because of the fact that, as you know, one, research on women's bodies is limited, relatively, right? I mean, it's out there. I don't want to discount any research that all the wonderful researchers that are doing research on women's bodies are, but it's not where it should be. There's a gender gap as it relates to research on women's bodies. And then when you look at menopause specifically, that's even wider,
Yes.
because there is, I think, a cultural as well as a bit of a medical assumption that there's decline, and that there's a deficiency. I've actually heard it referred to as an estrogen deficiency, which I have to say I kind of laugh at, because it, it's an estrogen deficiency just like you were estrogen deficient when you were prepubescent. It's
Right.
not, it's part of the stage of life. So it's
Yeah.
not a deficiency as much as it is part of, what the body's natural sort of stage at this point is. So I really wanted to get involved in helping women understand more about menopause, because a lot of people don't even realize menopause is one day, right?
Right.
There's
Right.
perimenopause, there's
Yeah.
postmenopause, and then there's the pause, the actual day that it is considered, that you basically have your
You
last
did it.
period.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so there's all those little nuances that um, we hear about it broadly, and we hear, oh, hot flashes, and that's all we think. And then we have all these other things start happening, and we're just like, what's going on? There is no way, given the number of people born female that have gone through the menopause, that we should be surprised
Right.
at these things, right? There is a wide swath of experience, and that includes our mothers. And I will tell you, I asked my mother, so mom, when did you menopause? What was that like? I don't want to talk about that. That was
It's
her
very
response.
taboo in that
Yes,
generation. Yeah.
yes. So we're coming kind of around to a place where it's a little more talked about. So what do? I am a menopause coach. So I've done additional training in menopause around the stages, et cetera. I focus, because I'm, again, not a clinician, I focus on the lifestyle opportunities that are available. And what's really interesting, and this relates to aging as well, is one of the opportunities that a lot of us don't take advantage of is the mindset piece.
Hmm.
So there is research that says that what you believe and perceive about aging, about menopause, is what your experience of it will be. So they've actually shown that people who have negative perceptions of aging live 7 to 8 years less.
Oh, that's amazing. Wow.
So what you're thinking about. So when I do presentations on menopause and I hear women say, well, you just have to suffer through it.
Uh,
That is like, oh, it hurts my heart,
yeah.
because that perception and that belief that this is not actually an opportunity, it's not a new chapter. Those are the things that I think about. Is I think about, okay, yes, it doesn't look like what it did look like. We could say that about, there's a bunch of things we could put
Sure.
in the
That's
it
it's
doesn't look
okay.
like. But what can it look like? Right. And that's what we focus on as coaches overall is, yes, this may not be what we want to be happening, but what do we want it to look like? And what's in that space of possibility, as opposed to, you know, the obstacle or the problem or the issue. So I work with people who are either ready to prepare for menopause, because it's coming if you are fortunate enough to live long enough,
Exactly. Yeah.
right? So that is already, you got a positive. You have years of wisdom, years of experience that you're bringing into this new phase of your life. And there's also research that says that our brains actually are able to work in new ways. That there are actually genes that get turned on to
Oh,
enable us to think differently, because of the fact that things are consolidating up here.
Yes. So tell me more about that, because all I hear is, yes, cognitive decline with aging, but we actually can develop new skills.
Yeah, there's a research. I can actually send it to you if you want to put it in the show
Yeah.
notes. Um, and it was, I think it was an article in Time as well as one in Harvard when I've done presentations on aging. And basically, they talk about how there's actually this access to the way in which you make connections between the hemispheres of the brain that allow you to be able to see things from a different perspective, more of a, let's say, a holistic or a total perspective. So in that way you can develop new ideas. You have access to this wonderful way of connecting things. And I think again it goes back to this concept of your mindset, right? So we think, oh, our brains are just gonna decline, and oh, my memory is, and part of that is a self-fulfilling prophecy,
Yes.
right? So when we know some of these actually evidence-based truths, um, that allows us to kind of really cultivate that mindset that allows us to truly thrive as we age. So so I find that one of the things that I always tell people is there's actually another TED talk, a TEDx talk. Oh, I don't want to get her name incorrect. But it was in Ireland, I believe, and she talks about this concept of shifting the blame.
Hmm.
And the idea is that we will say, "Oh, I can't remember that. It's menopause. It's aging. It's I'm getting old. Whatever." And I will tell you from experience, I have 3 teenagers living in my house right now
Ah,
because I have my nephew visiting in, and if I tell them one thing, I tell it to them 10 times.
mm,
And it's always, I forgot. So I always say, shift the blame. It is not aging. Everyone
right.
forgets,
Yes.
right? And so find, again, have fun with it, right? Find some joyful ways of just um, shifting the blame, or looking at things kind of like, oh well, I guess what I'll do now is something different. Life is too short to spend time suffering when you don't have to.
Right. And
So
you make such a good point about the mind being so powerful, and
yes,
we actually do have some control over our destiny, and
yes,
how we choose to look at things.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. It goes back to what we talked about from the beginning. You
mhm.
can choose where you spend your time. And for most of us, especially as we age, right, there's a level of independence, and also a level of, one of the other things they talked about within these brain studies was kind of this ability to let go of some of the unnecessary details, right? We kind of understand the battles versus the wars, right? So we know, hey, this is not relevant to the overall, my overall goals in life, and we're able to let go of those and really kind of focus. And then, some of us, especially at this age, might have more independence and the ability to do some of the things. So again, net, I'm not I'm glad I'm here. I'm excited to be here. I am embracing the gray. And I say that with the double meaning, right? Is the gray and this concept of not everything is clear cut. And we make our way through the best that we can. And that's all we can do.
Wonderful. Well, we're almost out of time, but how can our listeners find out more about you and to connect?
Sure. My website is embodywell.com. So that's embody. So as a whole, mind and body, EMBODY, well.com. And also, I do a weekly newsletter called Hot Flash, the newsletter, which shares some of the lifestyle research that's out there. And my hope is, again, to connect those who are either, again, looking forward to menopause or in menopause, to the research that's out there, and narrow that research practice gap. And that's at
Mm.
changingwiththe.substack.com. So you can reach me there.
That's such a wonderful resource. I love how you're providing that. And I think I'm going to sign up too. So,
Would love that.
great. Okay. Well, thank you again.
Thank you, Dr. Amy. Take care.
And thanks to our listeners for tuning in to Energize and Revitalize with Dr. Amy. Do you have insights from this show? Send me an email at radiantpodcast2025@gmail.com. Check out our past episodes on YouTube, and we're also on Apple and all your favorite platforms. I'll be back next Saturday morning at 7:30 with more expert insights and practical strategies to help you live a radiant and healthy life. Until then, here's to your best life.